Picture this. A man stands at the edge of a cliff, watching the sun sink below the horizon. The sky bleeds orange and red. He has no watch, no phone, no name for what he's seeing. But he stands there anyway, completely still, just watching. He doesn't know what a calendar is. He doesn't know what a century means. He has never heard the word primitive. He has never heard the word ancient. He has no idea that thousands of years from now, creatures that look exactly like him will sit in climate-controlled rooms, staring at glowing rectangles, calling him a caveman. So here's the question that nobody really asks. Did he know? Did prehistoric humans have any idea that they were, by our standards, primitive? Did they look around at their world, their caves, their fires, their stone tools, and think, something is missing? Or did they look around and think, this is enough. This is everything. That question sounds simple, but the answer will make you rethink what it means to be human, and whether we're really as advanced as we think we are. Let's start with the most basic problem. Prehistoric humans had no reference point. Think about how you know you're modern. You know because you can compare. You've seen history books. You've watched documentaries. You know that people once lived without electricity, without medicine, without the internet. That comparison is what makes you feel advanced. But prehistoric humans had none of that. There were no history books. There were no documentaries. There was no before that they could look back on and say, wow, we've come so far. Every single thing they experienced was simply the world as it was. The cave wasn't a cave to them, it was home. The stone tool wasn't primitive, it was technology. The fire wasn't something ancient, it was the most powerful thing they had ever seen. Scientists call this the baseline problem. Every generation assumes that their world is the default world. We do the same thing today. To a person living in the year 3000, our smartphones might look like prehistoric tools. Our hospitals might look barbaric. Our cities might look like glorified caves with better lighting. The uncomfortable truth is this. Prehistoric humans didn't feel primitive for the same reason you don't feel primitive right now. Because from inside any moment in history, everything feels completely normal. But here's where it gets more interesting. Did prehistoric humans have self-awareness at all? This is where science steps in. And the answer is yes. Absolutely yes. And the evidence has been sitting in caves around the world for tens of thousands of years. The oldest known cave paintings were made roughly 45,000 years ago in what is now Indonesia and Spain. These weren't accidental marks. They were deliberate, detailed, beautiful. Animals painted with shadow and movement. Handprints pressed against stone walls as if to say, I was here. I existed. Remember me. That act, pressing a hand to a wall and blowing pigment around it to leave a mark, is one of the most profound acts of self-awareness a human being can perform. It means the person doing it understood that they existed as an individual, that their presence meant something, that the future existed, and someone might one day look at this wall and know that they lived. Archaeologists also found evidence of personal ornaments, beads, shells, ochre body paint, dating back over 100,000 years. These weren't survival tools. They served no practical function. They were identity. They were, I am someone. I look a certain way. I want others to see me. So yes, prehistoric humans were deeply self-aware. They had identities, emotions, and an understanding that they existed in the world. What they didn't have was the ability to compare that world to anything else. Now let's talk about language, because this is where everything gets complicated. One of the biggest reasons prehistoric humans couldn't perceive themselves as primitive is that they may not have had the words to think that thought at all. Modern cognitive science has a theory called linguistic relativity, the idea that the language you speak shapes the way you think. If you don't have a word for something, it becomes very difficult to form a clear thought about it. You can still feel things, sense things, react to things, but the precise analytical thought requires language. Prehistoric humans in the earliest periods likely had limited or proto-language, systems of sounds, gestures, and symbols that communicated immediate needs. Danger, food, tribe, direction. But abstract concepts like progress, civilization, primitive, or advanced Those require a level of linguistic complexity that took tens of thousands of years to develop. So even if a prehistoric human felt a vague sense that something could be better, maybe after a brutal winter with too many deaths, too little food, they may not have had the mental framework to translate that feeling into the concept of, we are behind, we need to evolve. They felt, they reacted, they solved problems in front of them. But the meta-thought, the ability to step outside your own existence and evaluate it from a distance, that is something language makes possible. And full language, as we know it today, came much later. But don't underestimate them. Because prehistoric humans were solving problems that most modern humans couldn't survive for a single week, they tracked animals across hundreds of miles using nothing but footprints, broken branches, and wind direction. They built shelters that withstood brutal winters without a single nail or power tool. They developed medicinal knowledge of plants, knowledge so accurate that some of it is still used in modern medicine today. They navigated oceans using only stars, currents, and memory. And they did all of this collaboratively, without email, without meetings, without organizational charts. They coordinated hunts involving dozens of people across massive distances using spoken word and shared memory alone. By every measure of practical intelligence, prehistoric humans were not inferior. They were differently skilled, optimized for a world of immediate physical challenges rather than abstract digital ones. The part of your brain that helps you survive a boardroom presentation is the same part that helped them survive a mammoth hunt. The hardware is identical. Only the software has been updated. And here's the thing, if you dropped a prehistoric human infant into a modern hospital, raised them in a modern city, and sent them to a modern school, they would learn to read, code, drive, and use a smartphone just as well as any child born today. The brain hasn't changed, only the environment has.
So if they were this capable, did any of them ever sense that the world could be radically different?
The answer, surprisingly, is probably yes, in small, quiet ways. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies that survived into the modern era, societies that lived essentially the same way as prehistoric humans, found something remarkable. These communities were not static. They were always experimenting, always improving tools, always debating better ways to do things around the fire at night. They had innovators, they had skeptics. They had people who said, "Why do we always do it this way?" and tried something new. The pace of change was slow. Sometimes a single innovation might take generations to spread across a region. But the drive to improve, to experiment, to question, that was always there. Some researchers believe this is the core of what makes humans human. Not intelligence alone, not language alone, but the restless, never-satisfied hunger to make things better. That hunger existed in prehistoric humans just as powerfully as it exists in us today. The difference is that without the accumulated knowledge of thousands of years of civilization, each generation had to start almost from scratch. Every new tool, every new technique, every small improvement was a monumental achievement. And the people who made those improvements had no idea that they were laying the foundation for everything that would come after them.
Here's the part that should make you stop and think. When prehistoric humans sat around a fire at night, and we know they did because controlled fire use goes back at least 400,000 years. What did they talk about? What did they think about? We don't know exactly, but we have clues. We know they told stories, because storytelling is one of the oldest human behaviors we found evidence of. We know they had rituals around death, deliberate burial practices going back at least 100,000 years, which means they thought about what death meant. They felt grief. They believed, in some form, that the person who died still mattered after they were gone. We know they had music. Bone flutes have been found dating back 40,000 years. Someone, sitting somewhere in prehistoric Europe, decided that they wanted to make sound that was more than communication, sound that was beautiful, that was art. And we know they wondered about the world. Cave paintings don't just show animals. They show abstract symbols, geometric patterns, and repeated marks that archaeologists still don't fully understand. Someone made those marks because they were trying to understand or express something beyond the immediate and the practical. So the answer to the original question, did prehistoric humans know they were primitive, is this:
They didn't know the word. They didn't have the comparison, but they had everything else. They had curiosity. They had wonder. They had the desire to leave a mark, to tell a story, to make something beautiful. They sat around fires and talked about the world just like we do. The only difference between them and us is time. And time, as it turns out, is something none of us can really see from the inside.
So what does this mean for us, right now, in this moment? 500 years from now, people will look back at us the same way we look back at prehistoric humans. They will see our fossil fuel dependence and shake their heads. They will see our cancer treatments and wince. They will look at how we treated each other, how we went to war, how we let people starve, how we scrolled through phones while the planet changed around us. And they will use a word for us. Maybe not primitive, but something like it. And just like the prehistoric human standing at that cliff, watching the sunset, we won't know. We can't know. Because from inside any moment in history, everything feels completely normal. The cave always feels like home. The tools always feel advanced enough. The fire always feels like the most powerful thing in the room. Prehistoric humans weren't primitive because they were lesser. They were prehistoric because they came first. And coming first, building everything from nothing, with no map and no guarantee that anything they did would last, might actually be the most impressive thing any human has ever done. The next time you look up at the night sky and feel something you can't quite name, that pull, that wonder, that feeling that the universe is bigger than anything you can hold in your head, know that a human being 50,000 years ago looked up at that same sky and felt exactly the same thing. We are not so different. We never were.